The Family Feud studio buzzed with its familiar energy on that March afternoon in 2024. Steve Harvey stood at center stage in an elegant navy blue suit with a burgundy tie, prepared to guide another episode through the entertaining format that had made the show a beloved fixture in American households for years. The audience filled their seats with characteristic enthusiasm. Cameras were positioned to capture every moment with precision, and two families stood ready at their podiums for what everyone assumed would be another hour of lighthearted family competition. However, within the next 25 minutes, a confrontation would unfold that would cause Steve Harvey to lose his characteristic composure entirely, his usual quick wit and confident demeanor replaced by visible anger and disbelief, as he witnessed a betrayal so brazen, and a confrontation so devastating that continuing with game show pleasantries became impossible. If you're new to our channel, please take a moment to subscribe and hit that like button, because what follows is a powerful reminder that sometimes the truth reveals itself in the most unexpected moments, and the courage to confront betrayal publicly can be the first step toward reclaiming dignity and self-worth. Standing at the contestant podium was the Parker family from Nashville, Tennessee. The family consisted of 34-year-old Jennifer Parker, her husband of 11 years, 36-year-old Brandon Parker, their two young children aged 9 and 6, and Jennifer's college roommate Maria, who had remained a close friend through the years. The Parkers presented as an attractive, successful couple whose life together appeared enviable from external observation. Brandon worked as a commercial real estate broker, earning substantial commissions that provided comfortable suburban living and regular vacations. Jennifer had built a career as a pediatric nurse before reducing her hours to part-time when their second child was born, a decision the couple had made together to prioritize family time during the children's early years. During the initial introductions, Steve had engaged in his customary warm banter with the family, asking about their lives in Nashville and their experiences balancing work and parenting. Brandon had spoken confidently about his real estate success, describing himself as someone who thrived on the challenge of closing difficult deals and building client relationships. Jennifer had smiled appropriately during these exchanges, discussing her work with children at the hospital and the joy she found in both her professional calling and her role as a mother. From all surface indicators, they appeared to be a stable, prosperous family enjoying their moment on national television together. What Steve Harvey could not have perceived, what the audience had no way of detecting, and what Brandon himself did not realize was that Jennifer Parker had discovered her husband's affair 3 weeks earlier and had been planning this exact moment with meticulous calculation. The confrontation that was about to occur was not spontaneous or accidental. It was a deliberate choice by a woman who had decided that her husband's betrayal would not remain hidden, that his carefully constructed image would not survive intact, and that he would face consequences for his choices in a public forum that matched the public deception he had been maintaining. The circumstances that had led to this moment stretched back 18 months to when Brandon had begun an affair with a colleague in his real estate office. The woman was a newer agent in the firm, 26 years old and recently divorced, who had sought Brandon's mentorship as she built her career. Their professional relationship had gradually become personal, evolving from coffee meetings to discuss business strategy into lunch meetings that lasted hours, then into evening meetings that Brandon explained to Jennifer as networking events essential for maintaining his professional reputation and client base. Jennifer had not initially suspected infidelity, despite the increasing frequency of Brandon's evening obligations. She had trusted her husband and had believed his explanations about the demands of his career and the networking required to sustain his success. However, 3 weeks before the Family Feud taping, Jennifer had attended a real estate industry event with Brandon where she had observed interactions between her husband and his colleague that made previously innocent explanations suddenly feel inadequate. The way they looked at each other, the familiarity of their body language, the inside jokes they shared that excluded everyone else in the conversation, all of it had triggered Jennifer's intuition that something was fundamentally wrong. The investigation that followed had been swift and devastating. Jennifer had checked Brandon's phone while he was sleeping and had found months of text messages between her husband and his colleague that left no ambiguity about the nature of their relationship. The messages included explicit sexual content, declarations of love, discussions about the future they imagined together, and complaints about the burdens of Brandon's marriage and family obligations. Most devastating were messages where Brandon had described Jennifer as boring and sexually uninteresting, characterizing their marriage as something he endured rather than valued, and expressing eagerness for opportunities to escape family responsibilities in order to spend time with his mistress. Jennifer had confronted Brandon immediately, waking him in the middle of the night to demand explanation for what she had discovered. Brandon's initial response had been denial, claiming the messages were taken out of context or were simply inappropriate joking that had not meant anything serious. When Jennifer made clear she was not accepting those explanations, Brandon had shifted to minimization, acknowledging the affair but describing it as a brief mistake that was already over and meant nothing compared to his commitment to his family. When that approach also failed to placate Jennifer, Brandon had finally resorted to blame, suggesting that Jennifer's reduced interest in intimacy after their second child was born had driven him to seek connection elsewhere. The cruelty of that final accusation had transformed Jennifer's grief and hurt into something harder and more determined. She had realized in that moment that Brandon was not going to take genuine accountability for his choices, was not going to demonstrate real remorse for the pain he had caused, and was not going to do the difficult work of examining why he had chosen betrayal over honest communication about marital dissatisfaction. She had also realized that Brandon's primary concern was not the damage to their relationship, but rather the potential damage to his reputation if the affair became known publicly. He had begged Jennifer not to tell anyone, especially not their friends or his professional colleagues, arguing that public knowledge would harm his career and embarrass their family. Jennifer had made what appeared to be a conciliatory decision, agreeing not to share information about the affair publicly while they worked through their issues. However, her compliance had been strategic rather than genuine. The Family Feud appearance had been scheduled months earlier, before Jennifer discovered the affair. When Brandon had suggested they cancel, given the current state of their marriage, Jennifer had insisted they keep the commitment, arguing that maintaining normal family activities was important for the children, and that canceling would raise questions they were not ready to answer. Brandon had agreed, relieved that Jennifer seemed willing to preserve appearances while they navigated their private crisis. What Brandon did not understand was that Jennifer had no intention of preserving his carefully maintained image. She had spent the 3 weeks since discovering the affair planning exactly how and when she would expose his betrayal. The Family Feud stage provided the perfect venue, a public forum where Brandon could not simply walk away from the conversation, where his reactions would be captured on camera, and where the consequences he feared most, public accountability and damaged reputation, would be unavoidable. Jennifer had confided her plan only to Maria, her college friend who was participating as a family team member and who had supported Jennifer's decision to confront Brandon publicly, rather than allowing him to control the narrative through private management of the situation. The game proceeded through its initial rounds with apparently normal play. The Parker family performed adequately, answering questions correctly and accumulating points that kept them competitive. Steve facilitated the usual entertaining interactions, drawing laughter from Brandon's occasionally cocky responses and from the children's enthusiastic participation. The family dynamic appeared warm on the surface, though anyone watching closely might have noticed that Jennifer and Brandon barely looked at each other and that their physical positioning consistently maintained distance between them. When the Parker family won their match and advanced to fast money, the standard celebration felt forced and hollow to those who knew what was coming. Maria went first in the fast money round, answering the 5 questions and scoring 151 points. That meant Jennifer needed just 49 points to secure the $20,000 prize, a modest target that was easily achievable. Steve positioned himself at the podium beside Jennifer, prepared to ask the questions that would likely result in straightforward victory. However, before Steve could begin the round, Jennifer raised her hand to stop the proceedings. "Mr. Harvey, before we play fast money, I need to say something to my husband. I need to say it here now in front of everyone because he has been begging me to keep this private, and I have decided that his comfort is no longer my priority. Steve's expression shifted immediately from game show host to concerned observer, recognizing from Jennifer's tone and the steel in her voice that something serious was about to unfold. Jennifer, what do you need to say? Steve asked carefully, glancing between her and Brandon with growing concern. Jennifer turned to face Brandon directly, her voice steady and clear despite the emotion underlying her words. Brandon, 3 weeks ago I discovered that you have been having an affair with your colleague Ashley for the past 18 months. I read the text messages where you told her you loved her, where you complained about our marriage, where you described me as boring and our family as a burden you could not wait to escape. I know you have been lying to me for a year and a half, telling me you were at networking events and business dinners when you were actually with her. I know you have been living a double life, presenting yourself as a devoted husband and father while privately pursuing a relationship with someone else. The studio fell into shocked silence. Steve Harvey's face registered complete astonishment, his mouth opening in disbelief as he processed what he was hearing. Brandon's expressions cycled rapidly through shock, panic, and anger as he realized what Jennifer was doing. The audience sat motionless, recognizing they were witnessing something far beyond normal game show territory. Jennifer continued speaking, her voice gaining strength as she publicly articulated truths that had been poisoning her privately for 3 weeks. You begged me not to tell anyone about the affair. You said it would ruin your reputation, damage your career, embarrass our family. You were so concerned about how you would look if people knew what you had done. But you were not concerned about the actual betrayal. You were not genuinely remorseful about lying to me for 18 months. You were just upset about getting caught and facing consequences. So I have decided that you do not get to control this narrative. You do not get to manage the situation privately and preserve your image publicly while I carry the shame and pain of your choices in silence. Steve Harvey found his voice, though it emerged with an edge that was rare for him. Hold on, hold on. Brandon, is what Jennifer is saying true? Have you been having an affair? Brandon's face showed he was desperately trying to formulate a response that would contain the damage. Jennifer, this is not the place to discuss our private issues. This is between you and me, and we should handle it at home, not on national television. His attempt to deflect and reassert control was transparent and infuriating. Steve's reaction was immediate and angry. No, sir, you do not get to tell your wife where she can or cannot speak her truth. She just told everyone here that you have been cheating on her for 18 months, lying to her repeatedly, and disrespecting your marriage and family. The least you can do is answer the question. Is what she said true? The authority and anger in Steve's voice made clear he would not tolerate evasion or deflection. Brandon, recognizing he could not avoid responding, finally acknowledged the affair with visible reluctance. Yes, I had a relationship with someone from work, but it is over now, and Jennifer and I are working through it. This public confrontation is not helping anything, it is just making a difficult situation worse. The self-serving nature of his response, focused entirely on his own discomfort rather than accountability for his actions, seemed to ignite something in Steve Harvey. What happened next was unprecedented in Family Feud history. Steve Harvey completely abandoned his role as neutral game show host and directly confronted Brandon with a fury that shocked everyone in the studio. You had a relationship with someone from work. That is how you describe cheating on your wife for 18 months. That is how you characterize lying to the mother of your children, disrespecting your marriage, and betraying someone who trusted you. And now you have the audacity to stand here and tell her that she should not be doing this publicly, as if you have any moral authority to dictate how she responds to your betrayal. Steve's voice was rising, his anger palpable and uncontained. Let me tell you something, sir. Your wife has every right to confront you however she chooses. You destroyed the privacy of your marriage when you brought another woman into it. You violated the trust that allows couples to handle issues privately when you spent 18 months lying and cheating. You do not get to demand discretion and privacy now, after spending a year and a half being dishonest and unfaithful. The consequences you are experiencing right now, the public exposure and embarrassment, those are the natural results of your choices. Those consequences are on you, not on Jennifer for speaking about them. The audience erupted in applause, supporting Steve's defense of Jennifer and his condemnation of Brandon's behavior. Brandon's face showed he was humiliated and angry, but he had no leverage or moral standing to push back against Steve's assessment. Jennifer stood quietly, tears streaming down her face, but there was also visible relief in her expression, the relief that comes from finally releasing a burden that has been carried in painful isolation. Steve turned to Jennifer, his expression softening immediately. Jennifer, I am so sorry you have been dealing with this betrayal. I am sorry your husband violated your trust and your marriage. And I want you to know that what you just did, confronting him publicly and refusing to carry his shame for him, that took extraordinary courage. Too many people, especially women, are pressured to protect the reputations of people who have hurt them. They are told to handle things quietly, to not make waves, to prioritize other people's comfort over their own healing. You refuse to do that, and I respect that decision completely. He continued, addressing both Jennifer and the audience. I want to say something about affairs and betrayal because this is important. When someone cheats, they do not just betray their partner sexually or romantically. They betray trust, which is the foundation of any relationship. They create a situation where their partner questions everything about their shared history and their own judgment. They steal their partner's right to make informed decisions about their own life. Brandon did not just have sex with someone else. He lied to Jennifer every single day for 18 months. He looked her in the eye and deceived her repeatedly. He allowed her to make decisions about their marriage, their family, their finances, all based on false information because he was hiding fundamental truths about his behavior and commitments. Steve's words articulated dimensions of betrayal that resonated with Jennifer and with many watching. He then addressed the broader audience with a message about accountability and consequences. I want everyone watching to understand that actions have consequences. You cannot lie to people, betray people, hurt people, and then get upset when those people respond in ways that are inconvenient or uncomfortable for you. Brandon is angry right now because his wife exposed his affair publicly. But he had no problem with public deception, presenting himself as a faithful husband while privately being unfaithful. He only objects to public truth, because that creates accountability he was trying to avoid. Brandon attempted to speak to defend himself or provide context, but Steve cut him off firmly. No, sir, I am not interested in your excuses or your justifications. There is no explanation that makes cheating on your wife for 18 months acceptable. There is no context that makes lying to her repeatedly understandable. You made choices, and those choices have consequences, and you are experiencing those consequences right now. That is how this works. The finality in Steve's voice made clear the conversation was over. Production staff approached to discuss how to proceed with the show given what had occurred. Steve made an immediate decision that prioritized Jennifer's well-being over television logistics. We are stopping this game right now. Brandon, you need to leave the stage. Your participation in this show is over. Jennifer, if you want to continue, we will play fast money with you and your team. If you want to stop, that is completely fine and understandable. The choice is yours. The decisive action Steve took, removing Brandon from the stage and giving Jennifer agency to decide how to proceed, demonstrated leadership and compassion that extended beyond his role as host. Jennifer chose to continue, stating that she had come to play the game and that Brandon's affair had already stolen enough from her life without also stealing this experience. Steve proceeded with the fast money round, asking Jennifer the 5 questions with gentleness and encouragement that contrasted sharply with his earlier anger toward Brandon. Jennifer answered each question with surprising focus and clarity, as though confronting her husband had freed mental and emotional resources that had been consumed by carrying the secret of his betrayal. When her answers were revealed, Jennifer had scored 87 points on her own, bringing the family total to 238 points, well exceeding the threshold for victory. The audience applauded enthusiastically, celebrating not just the game show win but Jennifer's courage and dignity. Steve made an announcement that extended beyond standard protocol. Jennifer, you just won $20,000, and that money is yours. But I am going to add another $20,000 from my foundation, because I want you to have resources to rebuild your life however you choose, whether that means working on your marriage or ending it and starting over. Whatever you decide, you deserve support and options. The generosity of the gesture brought fresh tears from Jennifer, this time tears of gratitude rather than pain. The episode that aired 6 weeks later became one of the most watched and discussed in Family Feud history. The production company made the difficult decision to include the confrontation footage with appropriate content warnings and resources for viewers dealing with infidelity and betrayal. The response was immediate and intensely divided. Some viewers praised Jennifer for her courage in confronting her husband publicly and viewed her action as empowering refusal to protect someone who had hurt her. Others criticized her for handling private marital issues publicly and suggested the confrontation was inappropriate given the presence of their children and the television audience. Relationship experts and media commentators debated whether public confrontation of infidelity was healthy or harmful, whether it served legitimate purposes or simply inflicted additional damage on already broken relationships. Mental health professionals discussed the trauma of betrayal, the importance of truth-telling and healing, and the complex question of whether public accountability served therapeutic purposes or simply created additional complications. The conversation extended far beyond Jennifer and Brandon's specific situation, touching broader cultural questions about privacy, accountability, and appropriate responses to relationship betrayal. Brandon Parker faced immediate and severe consequences beyond the public embarrassment of the televised confrontation. His real estate firm, after reviewing the situation and consulting with their ethics board, terminated his employment based on violation of workplace conduct policies regarding relationships with colleagues that created potential conflicts of interest and compromised professional judgment. His reputation in Nashville's real estate community was significantly damaged, as word of the affair and the dramatic Family Feud confrontation spread rapidly through professional and social networks. Many of his clients chose to work with other agents, uncomfortable with the ethical questions raised by his personal conduct. Jennifer filed for divorce 3 weeks after the Family Feud taping, using the prize money and Steve Harvey's additional financial support to retain an excellent attorney and secure favorable settlement terms regarding custody of their children and division of marital assets. The divorce proceedings were contentious, with Brandon attempting to argue that Jennifer's public humiliation of him constituted grounds for him to receive more favorable terms. The court rejected this argument, noting that Jennifer's response to discovering his affair, while unconventional, did not constitute grounds for advantageous treatment in divorce proceedings. 4 months after the shocking confrontation, Jennifer returned to Steve Harvey's talk show to discuss what had transpired since that day on the Family Feud stage. The transformation in her appearance and demeanor was remarkable. While she still carried some visible sadness about the end of her marriage, there was also strength, clarity, and peace that had emerged through the process of confronting truth and rebuilding her life on honest foundations. She explained that choosing to expose Brandon's affair publicly had been controversial and that she had faced significant criticism for that choice, but she did not regret it. Jennifer articulated her reasoning with thoughtfulness and conviction. She explained that Brandon's primary concern, after she discovered the affair, had been managing his reputation and preserving his public image, while privately minimizing the severity of his betrayal. He had wanted her to participate in presenting a false front to the world, while dealing with the pain and consequences of his choices privately. Jennifer had realized that agreeing to that arrangement would mean continuing a pattern of deception, allowing Brandon to avoid accountability, and prioritizing his comfort over her own healing and dignity. The public confrontation, while painful and controversial, had accomplished several important things for Jennifer. First, it had prevented Brandon from controlling the narrative about their separation, ensuring that if their marriage ended publicly, it would be with honest acknowledgement of why rather than comfortable fiction that protected his reputation at her expense. Second, it had created immediate and undeniable consequences for Brandon's choices, consequences that he could not avoid or minimize through private management of the situation. Third, it had validated Jennifer's experience and pain by making them visible rather than requiring her to suffer in silence while maintaining appearances. Jennifer also discussed the impact on their children, acknowledging that the public nature of the confrontation had created challenges for them as they processed their father's betrayal and their parents' divorce. However, she maintained that teaching her children that betrayal had consequences, that truth mattered more than appearances, and that their mother would not accept disrespect even from someone she loved, were lessons more valuable than the temporary discomfort caused by public acknowledgement of family crisis. She had ensured both children received therapy to help them process the situation in age-appropriate ways. Steve used the platform to explore broader issues about infidelity, public versus private processing of betrayal, and the social dynamics that often pressure betrayed partners to protect those who have hurt them. He emphasized that while Jennifer's choice to confront Brandon publicly was not the right choice for everyone in similar situations, it was a valid choice that reflected her particular circumstances and values. He challenged the double standard that often exists where people who commit betrayal expect privacy and discretion in managing consequences, while their behavior that created the crisis was conducted with deception, but not discretion. As this explosive story reaches its conclusion, several critical lessons merit consideration. Jennifer Parker's decision to confront her husband's affair publicly on the Family Feud stage was controversial and polarizing, reflecting the reality that there is no single correct way to respond to betrayal, and that different people in different circumstances will make different choices about how to process and address infidelity. Her choice prioritized truth-telling and accountability over image management and discretion, challenging social expectations that often pressure betrayed partners to protect the reputations of those who have hurt them. Steve Harvey's response to the confrontation, losing his characteristic composure and directly condemning Brandon's behavior while supporting Jennifer's right to respond as she chose, demonstrated appropriate moral outrage and refusal to maintain false neutrality in the face of obvious wrongdoing. His decision to remove Brandon from the stage and to provide Jennifer with financial support beyond the game's show winnings reflected commitment to supporting the person who had been victimized rather than the person who had caused harm. If this account has affected you or prompted reflection about betrayal, accountability, and the courage required to confront difficult truths, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and leave a like, because these stories of human courage in the face of devastating betrayal matter profoundly. They remind us that we each have the right to respond to harm in ways that prioritize our own healing and dignity rather than protecting those who have hurt us, that consequences for betrayal are natural and appropriate rather than punitive or vindictive, and that sometimes the most powerful response to deception is simply speaking truth publicly and refusing to participate in maintaining comfortable fictions that serve those who have acted without integrity.